Hello everyone, my name is Kitetsu and welcome back to my channel. This is the third time I'm recording this video. The first time I rambled too much, the second time the file corrupted, and the third time my hard drive filled up. So now I've got a 3TB external hard drive and we are good to go. But the whole point of this video is for me to be a bit more critical about the contents of the box and to try and be a bit more objective and just give you my opinions. Should you buy this box or not? Is it a good box? Does it contain good stuff? And although I've deliberated long and hard about whether I should actually do this, I've given it a score out of 10, which I'm quite excited about in a way. Obviously that score is meaningless for some people. It's very difficult giving something a score when you have to try and take in all of the different types of people who are going to be looking at this box. There are going to be people who want it to play the game, there are going to be people who are just collectors, but primarily of course it's a starter set. The idea is that it gets you started with the new edition and it gets you started with the hobby. So in that sense I'm also thinking in terms of, is this a good set for beginners? Right, so first things first, what is actually in the box? You probably know that by now because it's on the website and I've done the unboxing video. This time I've kind of turned the cameras off so I can be a bit more analytical, but you get 54 models and they say 52 on the website, but they don't count the 2 crew members of the Celestar Ballista. So I actually make it 21 Stormcast, not 19, and obviously you get 33 Nighthaunt models as well. You get that beautiful 320 page core book, you get the War Scroll cards, a Battle of Glimsforge booklet, and the dice and other accessories. You know, there's more in there, but this is the key stuff. And obviously the most important thing of all is the models. And in this set, the models are absolutely gorgeous. You cannot overstate how good they actually are. I love them and I think they really are some of the best models Games Workshop has ever made. They just look stunning. The detail is incredible. You have to say right from the offset that the Nighthaunts are the stars of the show here and they look absolutely fantastic. Naturally, that means there's a trade-off of detail versus how robust and fragile the models are, but we can talk a bit more about that in a minute. One thing I really quickly wanted to do was compare the new starter set to the old one, and if you've watched a lot of my videos, you'll know that I have been exceedingly complimentary about the one on the left. It was £75, which for what was in there was an absolute bargain. Obviously the new set is £95, so it's £20 more, but when you actually look at what's in there and you look at the value of the set, it is more than worth it. They've basically taken everything from the first starter set and they've just dialed it up a notch. We've got more figures, the detail is higher, the books are better, the dice are better, you get better rules, you get War Scroll cards so that you can actually reference them whilst you're playing. Everything is just done a bit nicer, even the packaging and the presentation is better. Is the new Soul Wars set worth £20 more? Just the core book on its own is worth £35. And I can't say enough how much better the core book is than the book we got in the first starter set. To be honest, that one was about 100 pages, but it didn't really add much to the set at all. And being the very first edition of the game, a lot of the information in there, especially the War Scrolls, were outdated very rapidly. Something I love about the new set is they haven't bothered wasting pages in any of the books on the actual War Scrolls. Those are just on the War Scroll cards. So everything in those books, everything in the little booklets, it's going to stay much more relevant for a much longer period of time. It's just cut out the stuff that's going to change rapidly and it's focused on the good stuff. The value of the set is astonishing, but obviously there's then the trade-off of price being quite high, and you have to admit that £95 is still quite a lot of money. And I don't want to assume what people's financial situation is, but £95 is just going to be a lot for some people out there. I don't doubt there's going to be some kids out there looking at this set thinking this is their dream set and they just don't have the money or the means to buy it. But then on the flip side, if someone said to me, should we have cut out the core book to make it £20 cheaper? I personally don't think the core book is something I would compromise on, especially if this is for a beginner of the hobby, because it is an absolutely indispensable and essential guide to the world of Age of Sigmar. It's up to date, it's current, it's got every faction in there, the realms, the history, absolutely everything you need to know about Age of Sigmar is in that book. So personally, it's not something I would want to compromise on, but again, it's just a balance of cost versus quality. And I know some people are fed up of Stormcast, but even those look so much better and so much more inspired in this set. In fact, going back to this for just 1 second, if you actually look at the variety of the models in the new set, personally, I think there's an awful lot more variety in the new set than there was in the previous one. The 2 units of Liberators were more or less copy and pasted, and yeah, personally, I just think there's a better variety of units in it. But here's something I wanted to talk about as one of the drawbacks of the set, and that is the wonky unit composition that we get. Last time we had the 3 Retributors and you needed 5 for a unit, so that was a bit iffy, but this time it's actually slightly worse. For example, we get 5 Castigators in the box, which are the crossbow people, but in the General's Handbook you get 3 for a unit. Then we get 3 Evocators, and again a standard unit is 5 in the General's Handbook, and a standard unit is also 5 for the Sequitors, but here you get 8. Looking at the Nighthaunt, a standard unit is 4 models and you get 5 for the Glaive Wraith Stalkers, and the General's Handbook also lists a standard unit of the Grimghast Reapers as 10, which seems quite high to me, but yeah, here we get 4 in the box. That might initially make you think, right, forget it, it's not worth buying the box if all of the units have the wrong number of models in, but they came up with a very simple and elegant solution to that. In the box, you basically get the points for everything within it. So at first glance, you think that's brilliant. If, for example, you look at the Grimghast Reapers, it says it's going to be 60 points for the 4 you get in the box. First thing that I need to point out though is that there are some discrepancies between the points you get listed in the box and what is printed in the General's Handbook. For example, the Celestar Ballista is 100 points in the General's Handbook, but 120 in the box. The Chain Rasp Horde are 100 points for 10 in the box, but they're actually 80 in the General's Handbook. The Guardian of Souls is 20 points more expensive in the General's Handbook, whereas the Lord Executioner is 20 points cheaper. At the end of the day, this is, I guess, to be expected because they could have printed the stuff in the box quite considerably earlier than the General's Handbook, and it gets to the stage where it's easier to actually just update this in an FAQ. And that's undoubtedly what's going to happen here, so relax about this, it will be FAQ'd. And I'm assuming for now that the most accurate points are the ones in the General's Handbook. The Guardian of Souls is definitely one of the best models in the set, whereas the Lord Executioner is nothing too special, and the Chain Rasp Horde are definitely not overpowered, so personally I'm leaning towards the General's Handbook points, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. One thing worth considering though is that if you take the smaller units from the box, like say we take the unit of 4 Grimghast Reapers that are 60 points, it actually works out that you are paying more points per model if you do it that way, so it's actually more efficient to take a full unit as you get in the General's Handbook, but overall it's a pretty good solution. But no, there is more to this story than that. For example, if we look at the Glaive Wraith Stalkers, you get 5 of them instead of the standard unit of 4, and you think, well, that's not particularly an issue because we've got the points here for 5 of them too. But if you look at their War Scrolls, I think they can take something called a Deathbeat Drummer, and it's absolutely essential for these guys because every time they charge, I think they can re-roll failed hit rolls, which is massive. The Drummer lets them retreat and charge in the same turn, so they can be locked in combat, they can dash away and then recharge, and again you get to re-roll those failed hit rolls. It's definitely essential for them, and I thought, well, if you look at the easy to build kit that's coming out, you get 4 of them in there and 1 of them comes with the Drummer. So something I'm going to do is buy these 4, make them up to a unit of 8, and that means I've got 1 spare, which I guess I can use for painting practice. But I guess it's a shame we didn't get the Drummer in the box already, and it's a shame that we have to basically buy more models to complete that unit, but I guess they can't give us absolutely everything in this box. As a business, they have to have some sort of reason to make us want to go out and buy more models, and I guess withholding certain key models or, you know, leaders or champions or unit leaders, that's one way of doing it. Then we get onto the Castigators, and a standard unit contains 3, but the problem is in the box, the profiles don't tell us that we can take a unit of 5, which is absolutely mystifying. We still get the points for 3, and that's the same in the General's Handbook. When I've calculated all of the points in this box, which I will show you in a minute, there's no way I'm going to pay the points for a unit of 3 and only take 2 models. So for me, the only solution here is to acquire one more of these guys, or have to take 2 out of the box. That's a little bit frustrating, and I don't know why they couldn't have done that. If they can have, you know, a unit of 4 Grimghast Reapers, or they can chuck an extra one in for the Glaive Wraith Stalkers and have a minimum unit of 5, why couldn't they have given us a unit of 5 of these too? I'm pretty sure that at some point very shortly we're surely gonna see a Stormcast Eternal Battletome update. It's the only thing that makes sense, as we've got a new chamber, but maybe that will fix things, maybe it will change them, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. For me, the biggest issue comes with the Sequitors, and you can take a unit of 3 according to the box, or you can take a unit of 5 according to the General's Handbook. The problem is they give you 8, and 8 is obviously not divisible by 3 or 5. Your only options are basically to take 2 units of 3 and have 2 left over, or you can take 2 units of 5, but you've got 2 too few there. Again, the third option, I guess, is to take 3 units of 3 and have one of them under strength, but that's not something I would do. But what I thought I would do is basically split them up into the 2 units of 5, and then there's the easy to build Sequitors kit coming out, and I thought, well, the one on the left is a complete unit, no issues there, we've got the prime, we've got the legal amount of special weapons in it. Then the unit on the right, we just need 2 extra Sequitors basically. And I thought if you buy that £10 easy to build kit, you've got a spare prime who's equipped in the exact same way but looks a bit more interesting and exciting. So you've got a choice of 2 primes, you can swap the new one out, and then you've got your extra 2 Sequitors. The problem there is at the moment, according to the War Scroll, you're only allowed 1 special weapon per unit of 5 because you can only take 1 per 3. Then the prime's allowed 1 separately, but in this case, if you use those 2 models there as your extra for this unit, you would have an illegal amount of special weapons. So that kind of makes it very difficult to complete this unit. I'll probably buy this set here on the right anyway, but what I will probably do is actually pick up an extra 2 Sequitors just off eBay or something, and it solves the problem, but it's not ideal. Again, I don't know why they can't have just given you the points for 2 units of 4, which is basically what we have in the box. But yeah, here's my breakdown of the points you get of the Stormcast Eternals. You might see different points being listed elsewhere, but basically the way I've calculated it is to use the General's Handbook everywhere I can. And if that's not an option, I've taken what's listed in the box. Everything from the box is in purple. Obviously, I've had to get rid of 2 of the Castigators to make a unit of 3. And then with the Sequitors, if you manage to acquire 2, you can take the 2 units of 5, or you can take 2 units of 3 in the box. And again, that means you have to get rid of 2 models. The Ballista being in green is just because it's 20 points cheaper than what's listed in the box. But yeah, basically, if you take the 2 units of 3, you're looking at 860 points. If you take 2 units of 5, you're looking at 940 points. But that's a massive amount of points. You know, you're basically at your 1,000 point army right there. Things are more simple for the Nighthaunt because everything that's a bit unusual can be accounted for with the points listed in the box or the General's Handbook, but you basically get 780 points. What that means is you're comparing 860 points to 780 as long as you're not actually buying anything to supplement the Stormcast, and assuming you're not going to run underpowered units. And in that case, it's actually only a 80 point difference, which is not too far off. And if you pick up some of those awesome easy to build Banshees for the Nighthaunt, you've got 2 very balanced forces. In terms of points, they're exactly the same. But yeah, that basically just brings me to the summary. In terms of the good, we've got some of the best Games Workshop models ever. The core book is beautiful, but obviously it bumps the price up a bit. We've got a great narrative, I guess I haven't mentioned that, but the whole setup of the Malign Portents, the backstory, the Soul Wars, the Glimsforge booklet, and the fact we've actually got a Soul Wars novel coming out this weekend too. It's great to know what basically the conflict is between the two different factions in the box, and there's all these characters and you can reenact the battles. It's all very cool and it's a great setup. The value in the set is absolutely fantastic. You get tons of points worth. One way I like to look at the value is thinking that a start collecting box is £50. So if you bought 2 start collecting boxes, that would be £100, which is more expensive than what this is costing. You wouldn't get the 350 page book, you wouldn't get the War Scroll cards, you wouldn't get the dice and the accessories, but more importantly, you would get nowhere near this amount of models and you would get nowhere near that amount of points. The problem there is it's a trade-off of value versus price. The Nighthaunt are a massive positive. The models look absolutely incredible, and I didn't mention this earlier either, so I'm glad I've made a note of it here, but they can be incorporated seamlessly into the Legions of Nagash. So if you want a generic death army and you want to include these models, it's dead simple. Unfortunate pun there, but whatever. And of course you get the War Scroll cards, which is another positive, because especially if you're new to this, you don't want the rules to be overwhelming. You want to be able to quickly check at a second's notice what these rules are. In terms of the other bad points, the Nighthaunt models in particular are very fragile. Not an issue at all with the Stormcast, but yeah, you've got to be very careful with the Nighthaunt models. It's always that trade-off of detail versus fragility, and in this case they look so good, which makes me not want to mark them down too much, but they're also very fragile, and I guess if you collect death already, you're not a stranger to that. Most of those models are pretty fragile. The forces are unbalanced, but not by too much. Again, it depends what unit composition you take and if you choose to buy other models to supplement your armies. But just out of the box, if you take away 4 Stormcast models to give yourself those legal units, you're only 80 points away, which is not too bad. And the only other negative I can think of really is that it's got more Stormcast Eternals, which some people are fed up of. Personally, I'm not, but I understand where other people are coming from, and I definitely think they need to lay off Stormcast for a while and give some of the other factions some love. But if you are a Stormcast fan, these are definitely some of the best Stormcast models we've ever had, and their backstory is far more interesting than some of the other Stormcast chambers too. But yeah, then on the right at the top there, I've just given a breakdown of the points, and the overall score, I've given it a 9 out of 10. It's not an average of these values, but truth be told, I was trying to work out whether this set should get an 8 or a 9, and ultimately it all boiled down to the overall feel of the quality of the models, the value of the set, and just how beginner friendly the set is too. That made me think this is definitely a 9 out of 10 set. Obviously, I've kind of marked it down for the sturdiness, the fact that the price point is still quite high and it might put beginners off, the balancing issues, the unit composition, which is why I've knocked down the bit for players, and the extras is a difficult one. I was a bit surprised there was only one measuring stick, but hey, by now we've probably all got a tape measure, so that's not too much of an issue, but I was surprised there was only one. And obviously you've got the core book, which on one hand is beautiful, on the other hand is pushing the price up, and some people might just not want it. But yeah, again, the areas I've knocked it down are things that Games Workshop could fix quite easily, and potentially in the very near future they might do so, so I guess watch that space. But otherwise, that's the end of my review. I hope it was useful in some way, and I hope it sheds some more light on what my actual opinion of this set is. Overall, I thoroughly recommend it for beginners and collectors alike, and even players, because there's a lot of diversity of the units in the set, and there's definitely more than enough here to get you started and excited about playing the game. But yeah, otherwise I'm going to leave the video there. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new, and hit the bell icon so you know when my videos come out. And otherwise, I will see you guys really soon.